and welcome to Finally Fabulous. In this episode, I'm thrilled to be joined by the clever and wickedly fun Ingrid. Ingrid and I have only known each other for a short while, but her impact on me has been great. Her story is inspiring and encourages you to reflect on your own journey and ask yourself whether you're carrying stuff you just don't need anymore. This could be physical, mental, or emotional. I think we can all identify with that. Ingrid has taken stock of her fuck it moment in a foundational and uncharacteristic way, choosing to leave the stable but pressured corporate life behind her and replace it with life on her terms, choosing when to work, when and how she wants to. Ingrid is now a coach, an author and a speaker. More than that, Ingrid is creating a community, connecting those she's worked with to continue to support each other. It's almost like a movement to encourage us to get to a place of joy and just be. Ingrid calls this uncluttering, and her book, Uncluttered, is available now and received much praise. It is a must-read, and this is a must-listen. I hope you enjoy listening as much as I enjoyed chatting to her. Hi everyone, and welcome to Finally Fabulous with me, Kate. Today I'm joined by the impressive and incredibly joyful Ingrid Pope. Hi Ingrid, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you. Hi Kate.
So Ingrid, when we last met, I think about a year ago, you were literally on the verge of finalising your book, Uncluttered, and now it's out there. Congratulations to you. I have one too.
Oh.
We're matching with books and
Yes,
we're matching
we are.
with outfits.
Yes, we are. Yeah.
So we'll talk more about that later, but it's very exciting and I'm really delighted to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you. I'm so pleased to be here.
So first of all, I wanted to kind of dive straight into your family background because I find it really interesting that you have such a mixture of backgrounds, European backgrounds. And the question really was around, do you feel like that, as you were growing up, that you had, a set way of being and a set way of behaving? Do you think it's taken you forward into today?
Yeah, so I sound like this. So often people ask me, I sound like they say, oh, you're American or Canadian? Well, my dad is American. My mom is German, which is why I'm Ingrid. And I grew up in France, just on the Swiss border. So in a nutshell. And I guess for me, growing up, because that part of the world is so very international, all my friends were from all over the place. And even my high school was very international and they offered degrees for children who then wanted to go and study in different countries. So I took O-levels in France. How random is that? And so for me, growing up, that was normal. For me, what was normal was speaking 3 languages at the dining table because I would talk English with my father and then I would talk in German with my mom and in French with my brothers. And so that was the norm. And when I then moved away, when I went to university, I was in Lyon, it's very French. And then I suddenly realized they all just speak French. And I realized that they looked at me really weirdly. You speak how many languages? And noticed, okay, well, that was perhaps normal for that part of the world, but it isn't necessarily normal everywhere else. Yeah. I often gravitate towards the foreigners because I can relate to them far more. And so I guess what I therefore carry with me in terms of traits, perhaps is a real affinity with the person who isn't from there and the person who perhaps doesn't fit in and who doesn't get all the jokes or who has to strain harder to understand because it's not their mother tongue that they're having to, be on a Zoom call with where sometimes the noise crackles and we don't understand what's being said, and so I notice those things far more. And so often, I sometimes chat with friends and people who see me, they think, oh, she looks like us. But then I open my mouth and I don't sound like you. And then say, oh.
Did you take anything, do you think, from those cultures or from those values that kind of formed your personality growing up?
Yes, certainly punctuality.
Yes.
Attention to detail. The German in me, and some of the kind of American, perhaps, traits, I think cultural elements that we take in, but they are also linked to a particular era.
And it's interesting, isn't it, how how you grow up is very much forms, how you are as a person, and then you kind of break out of that.
That's so interesting. You mentioned that. Yeah, I'm becoming increasingly interested in like intergenerational beliefs and patterns. We talk, there's more and more talk around intergenerational trauma, for example, how trauma can be passed down through the generations. But it's not just trauma, of course. It's ways of being, it's beliefs, it's values. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom from ever since she had my eldest brother. And so that was my role model. And
Yeah.
I also know that wasn't going to be what I wanted.
Yeah.
And so there was a bit of a surprise, when I graduated from like high school, the tone, the unspoken tone was, yeah, you can go study whatever you like, but it's really just going to keep you busy till you get married, right? You take that in. And so then I did quite well and say, oh, well done. And
Yeah.
then I had a career, and it's like, oh, there's a real element of surprise. And therefore, I sometimes feel, well, what if my parents had had expectations and had ambitions for me? Where would I be then? You
Yeah.
know?
My mum had her own business from a very young age, she was very driven and very ambitious, but she always wanted to be one step ahead, and she's very creative and very ideaful. So that was just embedded in us. That's just how you are as kids growing up. We all want to go. Why not? Just go for it. Come up with ideas and how can you fix and solve things. And it's interesting, isn't it, how you grow up is very much forms, how you are as a person. And then you kind of almost start to go, hold on, but I am also this person as well as the person that my mum wanted me to be, or my family, formed me to be.
Your mother sounds like someone who was really quite a pioneer in that kind of business
Yes,
creating,
she would have been. You're right.
entrepreneurial space. Because certainly when I was thinking about what my job might be or where I might go, running my own business somehow wasn't an option at all. It was not in my awareness. It was not what anybody talked about, what anybody did, bar just a few people who had great ideas. And now look at where we are,
Yeah. And I think as women, there are some different expectations, aren't there, upon us? Like, we have skills around setting boundaries that, you've spoken to me about before.
There is this piece around setting boundaries, and I think that it comes from beliefs also. I think stories we tell ourselves around, well, we're given a piece of work, let's complete this piece of work to the highest standard that we possibly can. And that's what we do. And we also get the sense of pride out of that, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, except when the work piles up and piles up and piles up. And we're not very good, perhaps, at saying, yeah, that'll, 80% done, that'll do. Because we also want to please people, don't we? We like it when people are happy and think well of us. So we become people pleasers who want to be the ones who are helpful and respond when we are asked questions. And, and so we fall into this little loop that we've created ourselves. But I think we do certainly have some, beliefs tied in to also boundaries. We also believe that if we say no, that's going to reflect badly on us, that there's going to be a judgment around that, around.
It's just in our psyche, I think, also just to find solutions to things. That's, there's a problem and we're going to find a solution to, to get out of that, whatever that is, in life as well as in work, not just in work, very much in life, actually. And when you're working so hard, it's really hard to advocate for yourself, isn't it? And and if no one else is there to advocate for you, it's something that you really have to learn how to do that.
Yeah, and I think one of the challenges is even seeing that you need to advocate for yourself. I think when you're in it, and that was probably one of my challenges as well, when I was in it, I couldn't see. I did not have any distance whatsoever from the situation. I was just on this crazy project. All this work had to be done, plow through it, deadlines, against the clock all the time. And so when you're in that, you have zero capacity to even think, ooh, hang on a minute, this isn't working quite way. It's just, okay, need to just get these, must get a bit of sleep. And then, the next time zone folks are awake and need to start
Yeah, and
dealing
on it
with that.
goes.
Exactly. So advocating for ourselves is absolutely necessary, but I think that there's a prerequisite to that, which is to even be in that place where you realize that something isn't quite right and you need
Mm,
to, I don't even want to say stand up for yourself, because sometimes, certainly in my
yeah.
case, it was all self-inflicted. I was in a way in this space, and I was the one who wasn't asking for help, and nobody else was noticing that I needed help. So
Knowing that it's okay to
yeah,
say, I need help, which, and that it is okay, and you won't be there's no defeat, there's no fault, there's no bad thing about it. It's
no,
just a time to do that. And kind of before you reach that breaking point where then you're driven to say enough is enough, which sounds like was one of the things that happened to you as well.
yes, and luckily I got to that point before my body shut down and said, actually,
Mm. Yeah, game over.
yeah. And so I still had that capacity to recognize something isn't quite right here. I'm
Mm.
finding this super hard, and should it really be this hard?
Hmm.
And, luckily I was also in an environment which was really supportive. And it truly was that nobody had noticed that this was happening, because my manager was in a different office and didn't see me. And, I wasn't confident enough, senior enough to notice and say, actually, this is problematic. I actually really need you to do something about that, because otherwise this isn't going to work, and
Mm.
so
And were there other people who helped you at that time, or you? Because we talk about the importance of having a tribe, and
mm,
at that time, did you have people around you supporting you to help that make that decision?
not really. Because I lost the people who were working with me on this thing, and
Mm.
it was then just me, like,
Right,
representing this whole
that's
area.
really
So
hard.
that is really hard. I
Mm.
mean, my colleagues were kind of looking at me saying, "Oh, it's a bit tough, isn't it?" I'm like, "God, yeah," but they couldn't help, because they were not like in my little thing. They were doing their own thing.
And there's another thing around these workplace assumptions that you kind
Mm,
of talk about as
mm,
well. And when so you kind of, in my mind, this was your fuck it moment. It's like, I've reached this fuck it moment. Something's got to change. I've got to do something about it. And
that was my first one,
yeah.
my first bucket moment.
And that assumption around taking, changing up your work-life balance, going part-time,
Mm,
obviously assuming that meant childcare
mm.
or something, completely different for you.
Yeah, and I thought, this can't carry on. It felt so much like all my life was about work, and that didn't
Hmm.
feel like that's what I wanted it to be. So yeah, I applied for a role that came up uh, in the company that I was in, and it was a full-time role, and it sounded great, but it looked like it was going to be a promotion, so obviously more work. And I thought, oh, I don't know if I can cope with that. So I went in and I thought, well, actually, I could probably do it if I didn't have to work all week. So I went in and I applied for it, and I said, but actually, ideally, I would love to do that job 4 days a week, please. Is that even an option? And so, well, really, it's 5 days. It's like, yeah, but I really want the job, and I really want to do it 4 days a week. Could we try it? Could we?
Yeah,
And so they gave me the job, and they were happy to trial the 4 day week. And
brilliant.
it went well, and that changed everything for me, because
Mm.
I took Fridays off, and it just meant that suddenly, oddly, even though it's just one day, it shifted the
Mhm.
entire balance of my life.
Yeah,
And just it meant that it wasn't work, 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 flop, work, 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 flop. It was work, 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 ooh, day to do my chores, weekend. And
yeah,
then Monday came, and it's like, oh, wonder what's going on, at work, and what did I miss on Friday? And so it
yeah.
really changed a lot in
Mm.
terms of how, yeah, balanced I felt. And work was then still stressful and busy, but
In that allocated time. Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
I've also done the same. I found
Mm,
that actually 3 days was a disaster. But 4 days work really well.
Yeah.
And, and having that extra time, especially if you're lucky enough to get it on a Friday or a Monday, just extends the weekend.
I scheduled all the, life admin stuff, dentist, hairdresser, whatever, on the Friday, which was my day off. So I didn't have to like leave early or take time. So it actually made me far more productive.
Yeah.
And I don't think I did less, even though
Yeah.
I didn't work crazy hours for, like, I didn't do a compressed week, which is what some people also do. So they work for really, really long days.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So that allowed you then to, to get into coaching, and because you did you were able to do the coaching course as part of that time, and and almost if we kind of transition now to where you are now, and tell us a bit about where you are now, and you're setting up with your own business and everything. It's really exciting.
Yeah. Yes. So I have a lovely story around how the coaching training came about, actually, which was I had a conversation with my manager, and it was, January objective setting for the year. And he said, Ingrid, it's going to be a really shit year. And so what do you need to make this a good year for you? And that was a great question.
And that kind of meant that you then had something that I'm doing for work. I've got to do this thing for work,
Yeah.
but actually I've also got this thing that is genuinely for me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I said, well, yeah, that's something that I want, and that I choose. And I think that that's one of the big things also, certainly now in my world. How do we choose even something that we don't really want to do? And if we can frame it in that way, then we experience it far differently. So this was, I was choosing to do a coaching course at work. So that was great. And exactly, that was for me. And of course, there's a benefit to the organization. I became a coach alongside the day job, which was in the IT world, in large corporates. And so that was really lovely. But then it took a lot of my husband saying, I think you should do it. That's amazing.
Oh, here's the
Go for it.
tribe. The tribe has arrived.
The tribe has arrived. I said, yeah, do it. You totally do it. There's a really, really big piece that I feel quite strongly about, which is my really, really hard job served a purpose for me. It was, I think, we learn a lot in these organizations, when we're employed. When we start off, how do we know how to behave in a meeting, run a call, and we do that by observing. And for me, certainly that was absolutely the right place for me to be when I became a graduate and I was starting my career.
And today, so you're, I'm just, the way that you've set up your business, I think I find it really interesting. And the creating space and the model for space, and you designed this whole coaching like mechanism to take forward. And I would really like you to just talk about that a bit, because I think the way you thought it through is really, really inspiring.
Thank you. So I guess it all started for me. Quite often people ask me, "Oh, where did this come from?" So it started for me because I was always quite interested in spaces and how spaces work for us or don't work for us, and seeing that maybe some friends found it difficult to organize or tidy a room, and I thought, but that's common sense, and I find that easy. Can I help you? And so this kind of whole physical space, I thought, was quite. I've always been attracted to it. So. My house is not mega tidy. Everybody asks me, is it like, everything minimalist, everything's put away? No, it's not. And that's not where it's at. It's when does it become a problem? And that's where we start noticing stuff, So in our physical world, I think also probably many of us struggle with having too many items because we buy things and bring them home, but that happens more often than when seeing things leave the house. Precisely. Yes. And none of that is a problem. There's no judgment attached to that. But actually, at some point, you're going to run out of cupboard space. And then what? And maybe at some point, either you'll use it, find a use for it, or maybe at some point you decide it's costing you more to keep it than it is to let go of it. Because there's something around trade-offs as well. And we think of the benefits perhaps of creating space, but less of the cost of not doing it. And that's what I'm really interested in. So that's partly where it started, this kind of physical stuff. But then, of course, we talked a little bit about, what's it like living in or being in a busy job, in a busy company, and also looking at the world around us, which is very busy, digitization has sped up everything exponentially. And so the volume of stuff that we're dealing with mentally is, I think, also really crazy. And I don't think our human brains are quite designed to be able to cope. And I think a lot of us struggle to cope. And so there's the second part of my model is looking at mental clutter, and when do we have too much of that, and when are we no longer effective, and how do we identify that, and what do we do? And then I also realized through my coaching work that really emotions are where it's at, and emotions drive a lot of our behaviors and our thinking. And so I look at our emotional clutter as well, because we're also quite good at collecting emotions as we go through life and experiences, and perhaps less equipped to look at maybe some of these that are not serving us anymore. Some of these emotions are also tied to perhaps a past and who we were at some point. Generally a lot of our emotional reactions or behaviors come from somewhere in the past, and they would have been a learned behavior to adapt to certain situations and cope with certain situations, and generally to keep us safe. And we then carry on being that way, obviously, and sometimes that can then trip us up. And to understand, then to unpick this a little bit and think, well, actually, who is this person who's feeling this? And is this still keeping me safe today, or is it actually causing me a problem? And in a way, not saying everything has to go and clutter is bad, but saying start paying attention to the stuff that keeps you stuck, that gets in your way, that trips you up, that's just not useful anymore. And gets in the way of just being joyful.
Uncluttered is your book that we talked about earlier, which, and there's some great stories in there. And, as I was actually reading through it, I put myself in the situation, because I obviously, like everyone, I'm sure, has, a pile of things or a list of things in my mind that I need to get done. And, and I realize I can't unlock something or do it or action it, because it is there's an emotional thing that I first need to go and sort out. I need to go and have a conversation with myself, or maybe get some therapy, or speak to my tribe, or whatever it is, and just talk through. I've got this thing that I'm hanging on to that's, from my divorce, or it's from, it's something like that. And it's like, I can't get rid of this thing, and it's stopping me from moving on on this part with my husband now. It's something that's stopping. And we're great when everything's carrying on, but at some point this thing is going to come, and I will have to deal with it. And it's something that, if I can talk through it, and I recognize it now. And just reading some of the stories in your book really helped me to go, okay, so it's not just me, first of all.
It never is.
Part of a community of people who think the same. And then time does help. We always talk about time moving on, and it helps with your emotional reactions to things. But some things are deep-rooted, like you say, definitely, and very much from our past. And, my mother married 3 times, and my dad married twice. And, there's things that you see from learned behavior. There's people around you who have gone through different relationship changes or whatever it is. And, I have one daughter, and and all of that emotional things that you've created, and you've done, and you've done all these great things. Now I've got to hold on to it. And it's like, okay, but if you hold on to it too tight, you can't move on to the next stage. And some of this stuff is okay to let go of. And the stories in there are really interesting. I wondered whether there were some stories that you could share with us about some of the examples that you have in the book.
Or I use my husband as an example of someone
That's what they're there for.
I often use a photo of his desk. Actually, there's an illustration in the book, which is his desk and also his office. So that is a complete disaster zone, really, really messy. And you think, I do not comprehend that. That's beyond what I would feel is a space that I could be productive, creative, effective in. And there is the challenge. When we share a space with someone else, and we have
Yeah.
a particular preference and the other one doesn't, or that there's a clash there. And a lot of people say, oh, you need to help so and so, but I cannot help that person unless that person wants it. So
Yes, of
there's
course.
the starting point. It can be so tricky in this, with physical space, because maybe one person wants to change something, but the other one doesn't. Like the book is the product of what was originally a 3-month training course.
Hmm.
So I run these courses also. And so this was someone who came on the course, and they were going to move house and they were going to have to deal with this loft, but that was really traumatic for both of them.
Hmm.
And they just couldn't even start. And
Hmm.
so through coming on the program and thinking, okay, well, let me just engage with this stuff, because that's what's often the problem. You're talking about, some of these stories and some of the emotions are a bit buried, and let's just not even go there. And when you know that there's something there and you're not going there, which is a choice, and that's fine. It's there, and on some level, it's weighing on you.
Yeah. Good.
So
Mm.
by going through the program, it was like, okay, I want to face it and then find a way through this. And facing it for this particular person was, let me just accept where I'm at with this. Let me accept that it's hard. Let me accept that my husband doesn't want to touch it, but the boxes are too big. I can't bring them down myself to go through them. Like just what feels like massive hurdles, which are actually not complex things, but
Mm.
they are a symptom of something else.
Mm.
And then there was a realization that actually you don't have to do it all in one go. It's all right.
Yeah.
Bring one
One
box
at a
down
time. Mm.
and do that. Thinking about this stuff differently and thinking, oh, actually, let me be creative and how can I make this fun, or how can I reward myself at the end of having cleared one box, and then
Yeah.
you you can bring in some lightness as
Yeah.
well.
Hmm.
And it doesn't have to just all be hard.
Mm.
And they got to the loft and, one box at a time. And she realized her husband didn't want to talk about it because he was also fearful of what was in some of this stuff. And he
Mm.
also thought, oh my God, I'm going to have to do all of it because that's how she usually operates. And we have to blitz it all. And that's just
Hmm.
impossible. And I just can't even engage.
Yeah.
So it's conversations, it's accepting,
Mm.
it's facing stuff. And
Hmm.
one of the things I think also, particularly in terms of our emotions, is the fear of facing them is
Mm.
generally far worse than actually doing it. Scale and volume is the challenge. It's fine to hold on to something because it triggers all these memories, or maybe
Yeah.
there might be another use for grandchildren, or and
Mm.
that's fine. I think we also need to be kind to ourselves. It's just volume and just thinking, well, how much space do I have? Or do I
Mm.
want to allow for this? And then
Mm. Yeah,
great, fill it.
for sure. When you think about your ACE community as
Hmm.
well, the
Yeah.
I love that idea.
Yeah, well, I realized, so the first time I ran my 3-month program, I thought, oh, 3 months, that's a long time. We have like 6 modules and we have a Zoom call for each module. And I think people are going to be thoroughly fed up with this, by the
Mhm.
end of it. And what I actually realized is that by the end of it, it was kind of the beginning.
Yes, of
We,
course.
we'd uncovered all these things and looked at and faced and, uh, you know, considered things so differently that actually now was the time to start maybe doing a room at a time, or thinking differently about our work, or thinking differently on how we wanted to approach difficult relationships. And these are things that take time. And what I then noticed was, well, I can't just let them all run away and try and deal with this on their own. So I thought we need to check in. So I put in these monthly calls for people who've been on the course. And actually what I've realized is with the book, it feels similar.
Hmm.
So some people have really even struggled. They've said to me, I've got the book, I'm so excited, but I haven't had the courage to read it yet.
Yeah,
It
okay.
scares me a bit.
Wow.
So what I say to them is, do you know what? Just read it, but don't worry about doing at the moment.
Hmm.
Just familiarize yourself with a few different mindset shifts, few ideas, and then you can come back to it, and then you'll have a better sense of what it is that, or where you want to start or something. So that made me think, okay, it's the doing that's really hard.
Mm.
And that it's lovely to have people to do it with and to celebrate you along the way. And then
And it's a tribe,
it
right?
is
So it
the
is having
tribe.
these people around you, and this is a
Yeah.
community where
Because
people have been faced it on, head
yes,
on, and come out the other side.
exactly.
Or on the journey.
And and what's been really lovely has been that everybody who's been on the course, and I've run it I think 5-6 times now, when they come off the course, then they can come and join the monthly calls. And what has been so nice is to see, oh, so you're a newbie, you've just done the course, and they then have a conversation with somebody who finished it 2 years ago, and they say, oh my gosh, yeah, oh wow, that's possible.
Yeah.
And the people who finished 2 years ago, like, oh, that's how far I've come.
The celebration.
Yes.
Is really important, isn't it?
Yes, completely. And that's step 4 in the declutter method, actually. It's the C in the ACE, which is celebrate. Because, we're really good at beating ourselves up about all the stuff we haven't done yet. We look at our to-do list and we cross out the things we've done and then promptly forget about them and ignore them and focus on the 15,000 we haven't done yet. And so there's an invitation to think, no, hang on. Don't forget about everything you have achieved. And so we celebrate that together. And also, so I've got people come on the call and say, I knew we were I was joining this call today, so I wanted to have something really positive to report. So I've done this. It's like, yay.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
My next sort of questions to you are around challenges and kind of hurdles and anything you do differently. And actually, one of the things that you've talked about before is around letting go of perfection and comparison and this idea of choice, actually.
But we do that all the time. We start as little kids in school and we're graded. And of course, one grade is compared to another grade.
Yeah.
And so we're always in this world of judging ourselves against whatever criteria we might have dreamt up. Sometimes they exist in a workplace. We might, our performance might be measured in a certain way, but we're judging ourselves against other people. Of course, we compare and we think, oh, well, why did they get a better grade? Yeah. Who we compare ourselves to shifts, which is also not great because we were talking about earlier, celebrations and how important it was to remember, to celebrate all of our achievements because our goalposts shift all the time. We have an aim, and once we've achieved it, that aim isn't important anymore because now it's the next thing, right? So that's weird. What's that about? And so who we compare ourselves to changes all the time because we're always looking for the person we want to be. And
because we're actually comparing ourselves to ourselves. And as soon as we achieve one thing, then that's not good enough. It's something else.
It's funny because it took a few people telling me something for it to finally sink in. I was talking about, how I'd read this little blog that somebody'd written, how, they looked at a bell curve and generally people fell in the middle in terms of productivity and getting stuff done. And he felt he was more on the lower end because through his ADHD, he found it really difficult to do really basic things like fill out forms and stuff. So he said, so at the bottom end, that's us. And then the majority of people find it kind of easy to do these things. And then there are the people at the other end who he calls the hyperachievers. And that spoke to me. I said, I'm constantly comparing myself to these hyperachievers who do all the time. And is that really necessary? And then I was telling the story to a colleague of mine, and she said, that's weird because I see you as the hyperachiever. You published a book, man. You know what I mean? I thought, really? So then it's, I think, really interesting to see how other people perceive you.
Yes.
And then that started shifting something in my head. And I thought, now give yourself a break, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Give ourselves a break. So if you kind of think 5 years from now, maybe not just 5 years from now, but, just looking ahead, do you see new challenges on there or do you feel like you're getting to your happy place now?
So can I tell you a little story?
Of course.
When I was on my coaching training, we did this little exercise where we visualized the future.
Oh.
And we did it in a very physical manner. So we stood physically in a space and said, this is me today. This is my now. how does that feel? What's that like? And over there is the future me.
Okay.
And then we walked there and you kind of sensed, oh, is it a straight road or is it a wiggle or is there an obstacle in the way? And then you stood in that future state you when you thought, oh, well, what does this feel like? So I had visualized, I'm going to be a freelance coach and I'm going to run my own business. And then I stood in there in that space and I thought, oh, I do not like this one bit.
Oh,
And I thought, well, that's weird. What's that about?
yeah.
So I realized I needed to sidestep a little bit and think, that is not my future state. That is my next state.
Okay. Yeah.
And that shifted everything for me. And that was a huge learning because I think we very often focus on what's the perfect job that I want, which is not the one I have now, and then we put so much pressure on ourselves and we can't choose what should that be, the perfect. You think, but no, what's the next? And then once you're there, then you try it out and see what that's like. And then you can decide, and now what's next? So in terms of challenges for the next, in 5 years, I don't even know what they're going to be yet, but they're going to be great. Do you know what I mean? So it's going to be exciting. So I'm taking my book on tour. So I want to have, I might have, I don't want to say completed, but maybe started the next book, because there's the next book, which is the case studies of people who've been through the process.
Yeah, fantastic.
So I've got one in the can. I'm starting another one in a few weeks' time.
Brilliant.
And so it feels like, people love stories. I love stories also. So that's at some point, and maybe around the 5-year mark, that's where that'll be. I want to do some more professional speaking, so at conferences. And I don't know what else yet, but there will be something.
Yeah. Okay. So now we're moving on to some fabulous takeaways from Ingrid Pope. So one of the things we have talked about is earlier on was talking about you can ask, don't be afraid.
And more importantly, if you don't ask, you don't get.
Yes. Yeah. Go for it.
You
What's the worst
must
that can
ask.
happen?
Yes.
Yeah. Comparison is corrosive and optional. So we've talked about how that can be.
Yeah.
I think that's really important as a takeaway.
Yes. And just paying attention, noticing that that's what we're doing. And I decided a few months ago that whenever I do that little storytelling thing, where I notice that I'm not, feeling a bit stressy about something or I'm not very happy about something, I notice now that that's just me telling myself a story. So I've decided I was not going to do that anymore.
Oh, good. That's it.
That's it.
The end.
Yeah. Why am I doing that to myself? That's ridiculous. So I'm not doing it anymore.
And on that point, just celebrating every tiny step. Yeah. Don't just chase the next goal. Just go with one step at a time and celebrate what you've achieved in that time. And when Alice was little, we used to go on big walks, or just to school could be sometimes. And when she was tiny, she would always complain about, oh, how far is it? It's just so far to go. And I used to say, okay, so let's just stop, turn around, look how far we've walked all that way. And now it's just literally round the corner.
Yes, it's exactly that.
Tiny steps.
Yes.
And of course, protecting your physical, mental, and emotional space. That's what it's about. And everything you're building your business on is all about that. It's very inspiring. So what does joy look like to you now, Ingrid?
Oh, joy is freedom, and also a big thing, which is pace. So setting my own pace and realizing that I don't have to book back-to-back meetings.
Hurrah.
Who says I should? And maybe I just want 2 meetings a day.
Yeah.
And who cares? Nobody. So pace is a big thing.
Yeah.
Choosing the pace at which I want to work. And also sometimes I want the adrenaline and I want to be buzzy and doing stuff and that's cool. I can do that. But choosing it.
And do you feel more ownership now of your life story?
Completely. Not only ownership of my life story, but also ownership of my life. And of course, the flip side is I can't blame anybody else.
Nope.
Nope. And that's real ownership, I think. It's, making your own choices, and that's scary and a joy.
Great. Well, to all of us, you are finally fabulous.
Thank you.
Loved having you on the podcast. Thank you for sharing your story.
Pleasure.
And for the future you, whatever that might look like going forward.
Me. Yeah.
The next you, the future you. Yeah. And everything that's wrapped up inside that. Thank you very much, Ingrid. We really treasured the time that you spent with us.